The stars had always whispered to us, even before we had words for them, before we built telescopes or mapped their constellations. They shimmered above us like silent prophets. In their cold light, we saw reflections of our fears, our gods, our destinies. To look at the stars was to look at eternity, and to know, somehow, that eternity was looking back. For millennia, humanity had listened without reply. Our myths filled the silence. Then our machines did. We built antennas, satellites, deep space arrays, radio telescopes the size of cities. We cast signals into the dark, binary greetings, mathematical symphonies, encoded dreams. We begged the cosmos to notice us. By the 27th century, it did. The first confirmed alien transmission came from a binary system at the edge of the Perseus Arm, Tau Cygni. The signal was rhythmic and pulsed with eerie precision, 11 seconds apart, always constant, yet somehow alive. It wasn't random. It wasn't cosmic background noise. It was deliberate. A message. For 20 years, scientists around the Solar Coalition analyzed the pulse, peeling away layers of modulation and harmonics. The deeper they dug, the more structure they found. Patterns inside patterns. Mathematical lattices interlaced with something that felt emotional, like a voice behind the numbers. When the signal was finally translated into a rudimentary linguistic structure, the message was simple but profound. Open quote, "We see you watching. Are you ready to see us?" Close quote. That single sentence changed everything. By then, Earth was no longer the fractured territorial world of past centuries. The Horizon Accord, a unified planetary coalition, governed most of humanity. Climate reconstruction projects had restored much of what had been lost. Cities floated on oceans, powered by hydrogen fusion. We had colonized Mars, Luna, Titan, and built stations around Neptune. Humanity had transcended borders, but not loneliness. The idea that someone, something, had finally answered ignited every heart and frightened every government. The Accord formed a single response initiative, Project Alethea. Its purpose was clear: to make contact, to go to Tau Cygni, to see, to understand. Only 23 were chosen for the mission. Scientists, linguists, philosophers, engineers, and one captain with a reputation for surviving impossible odds. They were called the Stargazers. Among them was Dr. Senna Marek, a xenoanthrolinguist, dreamer, genius, haunted. She was 36 when chosen, a woman who had spent her life listening to patterns of thought buried in static. Her colleagues said she talked to the stars even when she slept. Some joked that she'd been speaking to them long before they ever spoke back. The ship built for the mission, the Alethea, was the most advanced vessel ever constructed, a masterpiece of fusion, quantum computation, and warp geometry. Its drive system was based on Alcubierre's centuries-old theory, now perfected. The Alethea wouldn't fly through space. It would slide through folded reality, skipping across gravitational membranes like a stone across water. The journey would take 13 years ship time, though centuries would pass on Earth. Time dilation was the price of curiosity. The launch was unceremonious. No crowds, no fanfare, no speeches. Just a silver vessel on the edge of a blue horizon, whispering into existence. Space folded, and the Alethea vanished from the solar system in a shimmer of bent starlight. The first year passed in silence. The crew settled into the rhythm of the void, a rhythm without days, without nights, without seasons. The hum of the engine replaced the sound of wind. Artificial gravity made motion feel real, but everything else felt borrowed. Senna buried herself in the signal. The transmission from Tau Cygni continued to evolve. What had been a simple rhythmic pulse transformed into intricate harmonic cascades. Every few weeks, the structure changed slightly, as though responding to something or anticipating someone. It's not just a beacon, Senna murmured one night, recording a log. It's a language, and not static. It's learning or teaching. By the third year, the crew began noticing changes. Dreams grew vivid. People reported sensations of being watched, not with fear, but with gentle awareness, as if the universe itself had opened an eye. Captain Rourke, their leader, was a pragmatic man, ex-military turned diplomat. He kept them grounded. Remember, he said in one of his nightly briefings, we're not explorers, we're ambassadors. This isn't conquest, it's contact. But even Rourke couldn't hide his awe when they reached the Tau Cygni system. The outer reaches were lined with strange artifacts, kilometer-long pylons of black metal orbiting in perfect synchrony. They emitted no energy, no radiation, just a hum, subsonic, bone-deep, listening posts, beacons, or sentinels. They're waiting, Senna said quietly. As the Aletheia drifted inward, the source of the signal revealed itself, a black sphere, 100 kilometers wide, suspended above a ringed planet. It absorbed all light, no reflections, no emissions. Even gravity behaved oddly around it, a field distortion that defied explanation. That was where the signal originated. When they entered orbit, the signal stopped. The silence was deafening. And then the dreams began. At first, Senna thought it was her subconscious. She dreamt of an obsidian plain stretching beneath twin moons. Above her, glyphs of light floated in impossible geometries, pulsing with colors that had no human name. The air vibrated with a hum like the ship's engines, but deeper, more ancient. And always, at the edge of vision, she felt eyes watching, not hostile, just curious. Then others began to dream. Lieutenant Sarin dreamt of walking through cities made of sound, where buildings sang when touched. Chief Engineer Okafor dreamt of gravity flowing sideways, where oceans hung in the air like mirrored glass. Navigator Keiji dreamt of his own reflection speaking back to him and smiling before he did. Every crew member described a different world, yet all shared one thing, the presence of watchers. Senna realized it wasn't hallucination. It was communication. They're not sending signals anymore, she told Rourke. They're speaking to us directly through cognition, through dreaming. How? He asked. By using our minds as receivers. By the 5th year, the crew's perception of time fractured. Physics itself seemed to bend. Instruments glitched. Readings contradicted themselves. Clocks ticked out of sync. Light in the corridors began flickering in Fibonacci sequences. The air carried faint harmonics, as though the ship was humming a song too complex for human understanding. Then came the contact event. Senna awoke, not in her cabin, but standing once again on the obsidian plain from her dreams. Only this time it was no dream. The air was real. The cold was real. The light was real. The glyphs shimmered overhead, forming constellations that rearranged themselves when she blinked. Figures emerged from the horizon, tall, shifting, translucent. Their bodies refracted light like glass through water, always moving, never fixed. When they looked at her, she saw stars in their eyes. One approached, folding space as it moved and communicated without sound. You reached outward, we reached inward. Now we meet in between. Senna didn't speak, she thought. She thought of Earth, of oceans, of music, of fear and beauty and birth. She thought of loneliness. She offered those memories as one might offer a gift, the being accepted. You are not the first, it said, or rather she understood it to mean that. But you are early. We are gardeners, not gods. Visions poured into her mind. Civilizations rising and falling like waves, species reaching for the stars and vanishing into entropy, others that transcended, that became pure resonance woven into cosmic fabric. She saw the birth of suns, the death of time, the blooming of galaxies. The stars are not dead, the being said. They are dreaming, You are now among their dreams. When Senna awoke, she was back on the Aletheia. 12 hours had passed, but she was changed. Her vision now extended beyond the visible spectrum. She could see electromagnetic ripples in the air, feel the pulse of the ship's systems like a heartbeat, and the signal, the one they had been chasing for decades, was back. But now it wasn't an external transmission. It was inside her. She wasn't the only one. Others had similar experiences, each unique, some joyous, some terrifying. One crew member, Ensign Lee, couldn't bear it. He walked calmly into the airlock 2 days later, whispering, "I can still hear them." Rourke gathered the survivors. "We've been changed," he said. "We can't deny that. But our mission hasn't failed. We've made contact. We need to take this home. Home. But which home? Over 2 centuries had passed on Earth. Who would even remember them? Would humanity still exist as they knew it? The being, or beings, offered them one final gift, a lens. It wasn't a machine. It was a crystal, no larger than a fingernail, but inside it shimmered infinite geometry, a lattice of light that folded inward forever. It wasn't made to be understood, only used. When embedded into the Aletheia's drive core, the ship's trajectory changed, not through space, but through meaning. When they activated the drive, they didn't travel from point A to B. They traveled through interpretation, through the idea of returning home. They emerged into orbit around Earth, but not their Earth. At first it looked the same, blue oceans, green continents, but the constellations were wrong. The stars were in places they shouldn't be. The moon had scars that didn't exist before, and the planet below was silent. Descending through the atmosphere, they found ruins, cities covered in vines, monuments half buried in sand. Yet the architecture bore traces of advanced technology, fusion-cut stone, nano-forged alloys, and carved into the walls of fallen towers were glyphs, the same symbols from their dreams. Humanity had been here, had thrived, and had fallen. Senna walked through what had once been Paris, now a cradle of silence. Statues of unknown figures looked skyward, faces serene. Some bore resemblance to the stargazers themselves. That's when they saw movement. A figure approached from the forest edge, human, pale, tattooed in glowing glyphs. He knelt before them and spoke in a language that blended ancient earth tongues with melodic harmonics. Open quote, "We knew you would return. We were told in the dreams of the stargazers." Close quote. Senna's heart froze. This wasn't their future. It wasn't their past. It was a future, a possibility. The lens hadn't brought them home. It had shown them what humanity might become if it listened instead of conquered. This Earth was not industrial, not expansionist. It was harmonic, a civilization that had learned to coexist with the dreaming cosmos. The stargazers were their myths, their ancestors, their teachers from beyond time. Senna stood at the heart of the ruins, feeling the hum beneath her feet. It wasn't dead. It was singing, the same frequency as the black sphere at Tau Cygni. The stars above shimmered like living eyes. The crew had choices, to return to their timeline, to venture deeper, or to remain and learn. Some longed to go home. Others saw that home might never exist again. Senna stayed. The glyphs still whispered. The dreams still came. The children of this world learned her words, and she learned theirs. Together, they built a new lexicon, a bridge between sound and silence, matter and meaning. She would teach them to listen, not just to the stars, but to the spaces between them. Because in that silence, the universe still sang, and the stargazers would always be listening.